My name is Pete Halme. I'm a commercial fisherman and have been since 1970. So everything I look at is through the lens of a commercial fisherman. I don't see any other way of looking at life except how does it affect the community and the fishermen individually. So when we started the market, as Molly said, we set out just to make a few more bucks to make sure that we got a fair price. But as it turned out, we were fishing that they, even in a huge area like San Diego, where fishing had been very important with the tuna, it was a tuna capital of the world for many years. When the tuna fleet left, it seemed like people thought there was no more fishing left. And as hard as it was to believe, people asked me, where do I buy fresh fish off the dock? And I said, you can't. It doesn't exist unless you want New Zealand fish, in which case you can go buy it. But and so in a town like San Diego, we saw that you couldn't buy, and everybody, whether it was tourists and so on, wanted to go down to the docks to buy fish. So we said, well, that's a simple premise. Let's do it. And it took 3 years. I learned how to make PowerPoint presentations to councils, commissions, and various groups explaining what it is we wanted to do. And so the port said, sounds like a real good idea. Why don't you go to the Department of Health and see if they approve it? So when I went to the Department of Health, they said, hey, sounds like a good idea. Why don't you go to the port and see if they approve it? And we got on this merry-go-round for 3 goddamn years. So we kept going and going back and forth, until I talked to a young lady friend of mine who was a writer. And she wrote up our dilemma, that it seemed like a simple premise. Everybody wanted it, and nobody knew how to do it. After she wrote that article, within 2 days, I got a call from the port commissioner, the head of the port commission, and the county supervisor said, how do we get this thing done? I said, well, just got to sign these damn papers and get it started. And they called a press conference and got the TV cameras down and said, these fishermen will open in 2 weeks. And that was it. And all of a sudden, after 2 years of talking to everybody and so on, it was that simple. And when I went into the port, they handed me a form and they said, yeah, you got to fill out this form. And I said, that's the same goddamn form you've been giving me for 2 or 3 years. I'm tired of it. And he says, they told us just sign the bottom, give us the $250 and get out of here. And the same thing with Department of Health. Just give us the money, sign it on the bottom. And it said farmers market. And I said, no, we got a fisherman's market. It's not the same. So they crossed out farmers and put in fishermen. And then I signed it. And we started, but we had a dilemma because in the law, there was no such thing as a fisherman's market. It didn't exist in the law. So we had to pass a new law making fisherman's market exist. And of course, when they came to a fisherman and said, you got to write a new law, I laughed at it for a while. It's a real good idea. I think it's fantastic, but no thanks. So the commissioner said, we'll give you the staff, we'll give you everything, and we'll put it together. And with the help of the Department of Environmental Health and the port and everybody else, we submitted a law that went through the legislature with 0 negative votes and was signed into law by the governor. That year, there was never anything that went through that easily because everybody saw this is beautiful. It should be done. It was just the roadblock. And this was a big change because it laid out in the Department of Health that we didn't have to go through the stringent regulations that a corporation would have to do if the customer bought the fish there, had it cut up there and handed back to the customer, we didn't have to do many of the other hoops they had to go through. And this was written into law, and also written into law that it would have to be local commercial fishermen selling, and they were allowed to sell only for themselves and 2 other fishermen. So you could have fishermen selling for yourself and others. And that's how we started. Among a great deal of fanfare on the first day, this was going to be Pike's Market. Oh, they're opening up Pike's Market. And of course, it wasn't Pike's Market. It was 3 fishermen selling 3 or 4 items. And 1,500 people showed up. And we had those 3 fishermen and said, what are we going to do? we didn't expect this kind of thing. But what happened is all of a sudden, we realized, or the fishermen realized, there's a demand for this. And the next day, 3 more fishermen, 5 more fishermen, and so on. And within the first year, we had about 18 or 20 fishermen that wanted to sell it at the market. And I got to press the idea that it's important to have diversity in what you sell at the market. Not only the top of the line, we sell tuna and so on, but we didn't realize mackerel would sell. We didn't realize top snails, all kinds of other things that we didn't know would sell. And I'll give you an example. Mackerel used to be a bait fish and sold for 60 cents a pound. At the market today, it's selling for $6 a pound. It's more than the tunas. And there's a certain group of people that will come only for the mackerel. One thing we didn't know would sell would be the fish heads. We kept using it for bait. Then we put it out there, and we have a Filipino and the Thai community that come down strictly for the fish heads. There's almost nothing in the ocean that somebody doesn't like. And it's only a matter of attracting them. How do you attract them? To make sure that they understand that it's not just tuna that you have, it's whatever else you can catch that's legal, and you can start marketing it. The other lesson we learned is try it. Don't worry about it. Try it. If it fails, you quit it and do something else. Don't go through a focus group and 85 meetings. Just do it. Every week, do something different. Try little things here, there, and everywhere. And you'll find it doesn't work or it does work. First thing we found out was people don't like to buy whole fish. They didn't know what to do with it. So we had to open up a cutting booth. You talk about lack of facility. We roll out a cutting booth on the pier. We have water in large 55-gallon containers, wastewater. We process that way, and we remove the waste off the pier and so on. We've established this thing that's independent of anything else. All we needed was electricity. And we roll it out. They arrive around 5 o'clock in the morning, ready to go at 7 o'clock. And in the evening, we roll it back in. And that's the end of it. We also found that displaying all the fish was very important. So we have these ice tables, 6 foot long ice table with ice on it, and we lay out all the fish on the ice. We keep them cold so it's healthy and so on, but people want to see it. They want to see it, and some of them have to poke the eyeballs and so on to make sure, and they want to look inside the mouth and the gill and so on. But we allow this to happen. We don't let them touch it anymore. We do it for them because of COVID. But they want to see the fish. So just a mere picture of the fish doesn't make it. There's an example. For 2 years, we sold whole fish. And one day, a young man showed up and he bought a 20-pound tuna, and he was on his bicycle. So we taped the tuna to his bicycle with duct tape, and he rode off the pier with the tuna on his bicycle. And I told the story to the commissioners, and they said, you see, there's a saying that a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. Now there's proof. There's proof that the fish doesn't need a bicycle. But we started cutting up the fish, and it opened up the thing to the usual American customer who just wants to put it on a barbecue and eat it. They don't want to fillet fish. Here in a large city, even if you knew how to fillet it, where would you put the stuff that you weren't using? You couldn't throw it in the trash. So by setting up the cutting booth, we allowed this to happen. What we did was start charging. We did it for free as a free gesture with a tip jar there. And we fast realized that there's a whole community in San Diego that thought tipping was against their moral nature. So we had about 30% of people contributing tip. So we had to change it to 50 cents a pound. We charge them 50 cents a pound up to a maximum of $5 or $10 and so on to cut up the fish. And we haven't seen any complaints. We cut up the fish. Some of the people want to take the heads home and everything to do whatever they want to do. And then we take the what we have left over. We have the trap fishermen, and we give them the carcasses, so they use it in their for bait for fishing. So when we started, and again, I don't ever talk about selling my catch. I don't think it's important, but that's easy to do. If all you want to do is sell your catch, it doesn't take much. How do you get a whole community of fishermen together, that they're in it together, that they want this market to succeed for all of them, and not just so each individual makes money, that the whole market has to succeed? And how do you buy them into that idea so that this happens? And this is the difficult part, and it's also the most rewarding part. When the guy calls me up and he says, I don't have much, but I want to bring it anyhow because I think people like this product, then they'll come to the market. And it's counterintuitive, but the more different species we have at the market, the more each one of them sells. That people get to see them and choose, and they say, I've never tried that. Maybe I'll try a couple pounds of that. And so the more species you have, the better you are. The more fishermen you have, the more species. But right away, we got into a dilemma. If you come to the market, let's say with 200 pounds of rockfish, you have the anticipation that you'll sell all of it. Because what are you going to do bringing 50 pounds home? What are you going to do with that? So when we see that a lot of people are bringing the same fish, we thought, if 3 people bring rockfish and they only sell 50 pounds each and they got to go home with 100 pounds, they're not going to keep coming back to the market. So we established a thing called legacy vendors, that certain species would be sold by these people. And if they couldn't bring it, then somebody else could sell it. But if they were there and brought in enough fish that would meet the demand, that we wouldn't ask somebody else to come. This met with a lot of criticism, but a lot of reaction. But what I found is that as a manager, you're successful if the fisherman comes to you and said, you're really too strict with me and you're not strict enough with anybody else. And if they all say that, you're going to pretty much hit the right medium and manage to piss everybody off, which is for an old man, it's kind of part of my nature. So we had this idea, and it has worked quite well. The only thing we worry about is if they run out, then we got to have some mechanism that somebody else can come, and that's very difficult because if they're not prepared, then you can't do it. So let me run you through a week. We have a market that opens at 8 o'clock every Saturday and closes at 1 o'clock. We've been going for 8 years, and in 8 years, we've missed 3 markets. All the other markets we've had. So we've almost 365 days or 52 weeks of the year, we've had the market. And what this week starts, today's Wednesday. Tonight, I'll send out a call, a text to 16 to 20 fishermen, say, what do you think you're bringing this week? And I have them all on the same list so they can look at everything that I'm asking. I'm not asking each one individually. And they'll come on and they'll say, I don't have anything yet. I'm going fishing on Friday. I'll let you know when I get in. And so that way we start forming, what does this market going to look like? I asked them for species, price, and approximate quantity. And so when they see rockfish, 3 guys come on and said, I have 200 pounds of rockfish. The 4th guy looks at that and said, I don't think we can sell that much. I don't think we can sell that much. I'm not going to come to the market to sell that. Or I'm going to fish for something else on Friday and bring that. And this is something that they work out. The manager doesn't tell anybody what to bring, how to bring it, how to do anything. We treat them, each booth is like the guy's captain of that ship, and he makes all the decisions. We provide the wherewithal. What we do is provide the wherewithal, the advertising, and so on, and he does everything else. But they have figured out how to get one price. Nobody's going to come there and undercut the guy next to him and so on. They work these things out. And the beauty of seeing over the last 8 years, seeing fishermen learn how to work together to do these things. It's part of if we could translate that to managing the fisheries, would be all set. But we have to learn this. Management of the markets is just as important as the catch, because the last thing you want to do is all end up in the same place. You don't want to go for your catch in the same place. You don't want to go for the market in the same place. So you got to spread it out to everybody else. And that's the part we've strived for all along, is to make sure that we include as many fishermen as we possibly can. And if we can include more species and there's not a fisherman selling it, then we encourage them to join us. And right now we have, over the last 8 years, we've worked with about 30, 35 fishermen, and we have about 16 steady fishermen that can be counted on week after week. The thing that I noticed, and this was something that we didn't think of, the ones that work the best are the ones whose wives or kids are there. That seems to be part of the need for taking a day off and going there, is if your family is there. Then if they want to go fishing, after a while, the wives and the kids do a much better job of selling the fish than the fisherman does. The fisherman knows a lot about fish. He doesn't know much about being nice to the customers who ask stupid questions. They get really stuck with that idea. So the wives understand it because they deal with their husbands, so they know stupid questions from the get-go. So to give you an idea of, we sell about 26 species of fish every Saturday, but we have 50 species of rockfish, for example, that we have access to. And I think this thing is, the important part about that is there's somebody that wants any one of those things. So on a Friday afternoon around 4 o'clock, on the Facebook page for Tuna Harbor Dockside Market, we'll go to a list of all the species and the prices that we have. And over the years, we've built up to 14,000 followers on Facebook and Instagram. And I won't talk too much about it because you've already heard everything I know about it. So that's all I know about it. We hired a young lady, and that's where, if you don't have anybody under 25 years old, you're probably stuck with that. That's who you get, a young lady that knows it's intuitive to do anything on her iPad or iPhone or whatever, and they can put that together with very little problems. And the other thing we noticed, if you do that, better have some pictures. If you don't have pictures, you're going to lose your customers. They're not interested. If you have pictures of people fishing out there on the water, you'd be amazed. And you can judge that because you could see the likes and so on. All of a sudden you have 180 likes. And when you just describe something, you have 2 likes. It's very dramatic. The action shots and pictures are absolutely necessary to sell the idea.